I'll tell you, ladies and gentlemen, sometimes I just need to replenish the old tank of knowledge upstairs. And when that comes up, I reach out to one of the very best coaches in the world over at Xtreme Couture in Las Vegas. He is Eric Nicksick, who is always busy, including June 1st at UFC 302, which we're going to get into in a moment. Eric, how are you, man?
I'm doing well, Mike. Good to see you as always, my brother.
Absolutely. And I know it's been an emotional couple of weeks for the team. So I appreciate you doing this. And obviously, right off the bat, we heard what happened with Francis and his family, and obviously everyone's condolences in the MMA community go out to him and the entire team. Just awful, awful news. How is Francis holding up? Because I can't imagine what he's going through, man.
I mean, as you can imagine, he's devastated. I'm giving him his space, but also let him know that we're here and that we're thinking about him. The plan was I was going to try to get out there at some point to go see him, spend a few days out there with him, and just want to give this guy a hug because I know he's going through the toughest fight of his career, dealing with the loss of his son and our nephew, and just it's heartbreaking, man. There's no parents that should ever have to go through something like this.
Yeah, I couldn't stop thinking about it like the entire day, next few days, even still now, just thinking about all of that. And when things like that happen, you start to reflect on your own life and lessons learned, and not taking things for granted that maybe you thought you did in the past. How have you sort of reflected on all of this since this news dropped?
Oh, bro, you nailed it. I mean, that's just been honestly my mentality. Is usually optimistic all the time anyway, but there's the reminders of the fragility of life. And, I just remember holding my son that night, and my wife was out of town. I had my son slept in my room, and it's just empathy, man. Like it just felt so bad for Francis. And, I won't mention much of our conversations because I'll keep that between us. But, I think just the reminders of, how fragile life can be, and love more, man. Say I love you more. Tell people how you feel, and let them know that you're thinking about them, and reach out. And I think that's been the kind of the sentiment around the team. And it's although it's sorrow, we feel bad for our guy, but it's also showed us how important it is to love one another.
Completely agree. Well said. And obviously, it's tough to transition from that into fight stuff, but we did mention June 1st, UFC 302, Newark, New Jersey. Sean Strickland returning to the octagon to face Paulo Costa, co-main event for 5 rounds, leading into Islam Makhachev versus Dustin Poirier. It's a hell of a 1-2 punch right there. I think you knew this was kind of coming when we were all in Las Vegas and you jumped on the MMA hour. You were just waiting for the I's to be dotted and the T's to be crossed. But when you found out Paulo Costa was probably going to be next, considering everything going on at 185 right now, the fights that were booked, etc., this seems like the best and biggest choice available. But what was your reaction to it?
I was perfectly fine with it. I think Costa's always a dangerous threat in the division, and I think he's deserving. I actually thought he looked really good against Whitaker. I didn't think he won the fight, but I actually was very impressed with how good he did look. And like you said, I mean, there's everything else that has been booked and the way everything's been shuffled. It's like he's the opponent that kind of fell to us, but he was the guy that was available and willing to fight. So with that being said, we're a win away from another title fight. So it's very important not to overlook Paulo Costa. He's a very dangerous opponent, and we need to go out there and get the job done.
Yeah, he seems to be really locked in these days, right? Like there was sort of that weird stretch when he was going to fight Marvin Vettori, and he was like, nah, I'm just not even going to make weight. We're going to do it at 205. And it was all this weirdness going on, and take some time away. And sometimes that's good to just kind of clear your head and focus on what you need to focus on, and comes back and has that crazy ass under the radar, underrated battle with Luke Rockhold. And then, like you said, he gets in there with Whitaker, who has been at worst the 3rd best middleweight in the world for like 6 years now. And Rob goes and wins that fight. But Paulo showed up for that one, no doubt about it. But what have you made of just, where we were for the Vettori fight, thinking about Paulo Costa, to where we're at right now?
I don't think it's really necessarily a skill thing for me, Mike. I almost kind of wonder if it was a motivational thing with him, with the, hearing about the contract disputes. And that's just me from an outsider looking in. Maybe there was things that he just didn't feel motivated to fight for the organization. I don't know. But I'll tell you what, wherever he's at now, he's in a good place. He seems like he's happy. He seems like he's training hard. Hopefully he's making some good money in this fight, because these guys deserve it, man. They deserve to be taken care of and compensated for the time and effort that they're putting in, and what they're leaving into that cage. So, but that's to me what I feel like. I think that the talent's always been there for him. Maybe the motivation factor was something different at the time, but it seems like to be it's back to the eraser back once again.
Do you, as a coach, when you see this matchup, and like you said, you're not going to overlook Paulo, and if this is a 3-round fight, you're probably approaching things a lot differently. But do you favor it being 5 rounds, especially with a guy like Paulo?
I'll take a 5-rounder with Sean Strickland any day against anybody. That's our style. That's who we are. That's just really the meat and potatoes of the type of fighter Sean Strickland is. A 5-rounder is going to favor us. And we've lost these split decisions, these close decisions, but they're fights that Sean's always going to be in, and he's going to make him grimy. He's going to make him dirty. And that's the thing for us is on the heels of the Dricus loss, what can we do and to improve and ensure that our hands getting raised after these 5-round fights?
I saw you, I haven't gotten the chance to watch it yet, but you spoke with my buddy James Lynch recently, and you had mentioned that there were some talks about Sean possibly fighting Khamzat Chimaev in Saudi Arabia. And man, that was the fight I wanted, because I just think it would have been a great test for both guys. And if Sean could weather that early storm, things could get real weird and interesting as the fight goes on, especially if it's a 5-rounder. What did you think about that possibility? Like, do you view it the same way I did, that, hey man, we just got to weather the early storm and then we can kind of push the pace and do our thing? Because that matchup just is so good to me. Immediately after Sean lost to Dricus, I was like, you got to do Sean versus Khamzat.
Yeah, no, I mean, dude, I'm a big Khamzat fan. Obviously, he's trained here quite a bit. I've got to work with him. Skill wise, he's just unbelievable, and the sky's the limit for Khamzat. It's definitely a very intriguing fight because these guys train with each other quite a bit. So I feel like it would be a little bit more of a chess match rather than like, hey, we're gonna have to get out of rounds 1 and 2. But I agree with your assessment. We've seen Khamzat fade, in those later rounds, and if Sean can continue to keep that pressure on, I think it definitely does favor us. But Khamzat's in a good place now. He's fighting Whitaker, and that fight, this matchup, could ultimately leapfrog him if he has a good performance. It puts him in a position for that title fight. So I think Sean and Khamzat are neck and neck on pending on performance and how this thing all shakes out. With their upcoming fights.
I saw Johnny Eblen's been in town a little bit as well.
Oh, yeah.
It's almost like having a cheat code with that guy in there, because he probably could do all these different styles. And I don't know how you mimic Paulo Costa, but I bet if you just say, hey, do this, Johnny Eblen could figure it out, right?
Johnny Eblen's just hard work. Like, you're going to get him in the room, and this dude's going to bust his ass. He's going to raise the level of the room. That's what he always does when he comes into town. Absolute joy to have in the room, joy to coach. I have such a great time with him, but moreover, him and Sean have really blossomed this friendship, and he's going to be in our corner for the fight out in June. It's going to be nice to have him out there. Just his energy, man. And he's a champion now, and I've got to work with him well before his championship run. So seeing his development to where he's at now, I mean, hats off to him and his team. And just, when he brings that energy out to Xtreme, we all leave here, and just raises the level of the entire room. So it's great to have him in here.
Usually you're not really focused on this stuff, but you know how it is on social media and on the internet. You do an interview, these social media aggro accounts, they grab something and they throw it out there, and you're just like, oh, that's interesting. So figured I'd just ask you straight up, because I saw those headlines that the reason that Sean isn't fighting Khamzat was because Sean couldn't go to Saudi. And I assume there was like more context to this, or maybe even less. You were just saying, maybe this is what I heard, but you know how some of this works. Like, why didn't that fight happen from your perspective?
I don't know. That was like my guess. It was like, Sean's not fighting because of this. I was like, I'm guessing he probably can't get into Saudi Arabia. It was more like tongue in cheek. I don't freaking know. Like, it was a hard time to even get into Australia. So when James asked me the question, I even said, I was like, I'm not even 100% sure, but I'm guessing probably because he probably couldn't get into Saudi. And everyone was like, that's why the fight didn't happen. I'm like, oh man. So no, it was literally that. It was I have no idea, probably because of this, but Khamzat is going to be the draw, comes in Saudi Arabia. So I think it was more of a location setup than anything. And if there's going to be any hurdles whatsoever of getting Sean anywhere, then why even risk putting him as a headliner on that card? So it makes complete sense to me.
You think was it close? You think? You think we were close to getting that one?
I have no idea. I know when Khamzat beat Usman, they wrote me and were like, "Hey, what's the earliest you think you can have Sean ready to fight Khamzat?" I was like, "Oh, because that was going to be the title fight." And I was like, "Oh, we'll be. He's in the gym. Like, we'll be ready whenever you let us know." So, and then Khamzat, I believe, got sick or he had something going on. If I remember correctly, like an infection or something. I can't remember what, but it put him on the back burner for a little while, and that's why we ended up getting Dricus.
Sean's now getting Costa, and it's a big ass fight. And it seemed as if he did a little bit of negotiating on what he wanted, at least on social media, and respect, like you said, go get yours. And what's interesting about this particular matchup and everything that's been going on since Sean lost the belt is Sean will fight anybody, whether it be at the Apex or in my backyard or in Newark in front of 15,000 people. The man will fight anybody. And it's very rare that he actually calls for specific bodies. He's just like, yeah, man, whatever. He really wanted that rematch with Dricus du Plessis. For weeks, he was on Twitter being like, let's go, man. Let's do the rematch. I won that fight, etc. Sean moves on pretty quickly, but was he bummed at all that he didn't get Dricus?
I think there's a part of him that was bummed, and to be honest with you, I feel like we left a little bit in the cage. Like I say left a little bit, but I think there was things that we could have done a little bit better as a team, to incentivize that win. So I think that might have bothered him to some degree. But this game moves fast. Like when we lost to Pereira, I told him, I said, hey, we're a win or two away from being right back in title contention. Unfortunately, we lost a split to Cannonier right after, and then he won 2 in a row, and then we beat Izzy. So that's the game, man. It's just who's ever next up and ready to take that opportunity when the door knocks. When they knock on the door, you got to be willing to open. So I could feel like he was probably a little upset about it. I actually had a really good conversation with Dricus. We played paintball together. He's a class act, man. I really like Dricus a lot. He's a great guy. We talked about the fight. We talked about life and training and this and that. And he was telling me, he's like, Dricus's camp was pushing for the rematch for Sean, and they wanted that fight, but it sounded like the UFC wanted to move a different direction. And I understand that. So there's a lot of steam, I think, on the Izzy Dricus fight. There's a lot of steam on the Izzy Sean rematch. There's a lot of steam on Izzy or on Dricus and Sean rematch. So a lot can happen. I think that as long as these guys stay active and keep this division moving, I think we'll get that rematch in due time.
How would you rate DDP's paintballing skills? We've seen him sing dressed as a Minotaur or whatever the hell he was, but how's he paintball?
This dude is hanging around the corner, this big ass like Shrek hands. And the whole time I'm like, Dricus, I can see your hands, bro. Like he's, I was like, that's got to be Dricus. So I just started shooting him in the hands. And I shot him in the hand on one. And the next time he came, like they use him as like a human shield. He came running across the thing, and I was just like, bam, 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 just got him right on the top of the head. Yeah, it was funny. He's like, I got shot in the head. I'm like, yeah, because you're a big old Shrek running across the field, man. So no, it was fun, man. We had a good time, and he's a super nice guy, bro. I couldn't be happier for him. He's a nice dude.
How do you break that one down with Dricus and Izzy? Because we assume that's where we're heading here.
Tough, man. Tough fight, both. I think what makes Dricus so well is his erratic behavior. Erratic in the parts of it's just very hard to catch a rhythm. That was part of our game plan with Sean. Of course, Sean's tough to catch rhythm on because he's very unorthodox in certain degrees. And keeping Izzy on his back foot. So for Dricus, he definitely has to kind of mimic some of our game plan, I think, and try to funnel Izzy into the corner post and keep him flat paneled on the cage. That helped us a ton. But for Izzy, he's so great in free flowing space. I think it'll be important for Izzy to make sure he keeps his back off the cage. Utilize both stances, man. He's so good there, but utilize both stances to where he's able to move in and out and not be a sitting target, especially for the takedown. So, and I think Izzy's game has improved so much, especially in the wrestling side of things. I liked seeing when Izzy fought Pereira, man, taking him down. It showed a wrinkle in his game that, it's like, oh, this guy is a champ, but he's working on all the things that were once his deficiencies. So I think it's a very good matchup, man. And I'm interested to see Izzy come back after the last loss versus Sean, just see his motivation. I cheer for both these guys, man. They're both good people.
And it's going to be kind of an interesting spot that you're in right now because, I mean, you've had I'm sure a couple of fighters that come to the top of your mind, but Sean's gotten himself over in such a big way right now that he's never out of the title conversation. Like it's going to take like him losing 5 in a row. And even then, like he's so popular right now in today's UFC that if he just goes out and has like one good performance, like he's back in the mix, especially with availability being so important these days. Like, what is that like? And can you think of somebody else that you've coached that is in a position like that where, hey, he might lose, but if he just wins his next one, he's back in there. If he loses 2 in a row, one win gets him right back in the mix.
You nailed it. He has a Diaz effect to him, right? Like, is a Nate Diaz effect to him. It doesn't matter. Like the guy's going to come to fight. He's going to have an army of fans behind him, and people are going to tune in when Sean's fighting. People are going to tune in when any of the Diaz brothers were fighting. So you could have lost 3 or 4 in a row and you would have forgot about that. Even Nate losing to Leon Edwards, he still looked good in it, at the very end of it. That's all we thought about, So you're absolutely right, man. I think that just the way that Sean has this following now and the way that he's going out and fighting, he's turned into one of the fan favorites. And I think that UFC would put, emphasis behind that, especially if he wins 1 or 2 in a row. We're right back in that title hunt again.
When did you start to sort of notice that change? Because there was a time, and obviously we host preview shows and post-fight shows for every single UFC card. And there was a time where Sean was headlining at the Apex fighting Cannonier or Imavov or whoever. And it's just like, oh shit, another Sean Strickland main event. Like we're just going to get 5-round decision. He's just going to stand there and jab and yada, yada, yada. And all of a sudden he's must see TV just like that. When did you sort of notice that shift?
When we were in Toronto, during like the presser, Chris and I are walking and some guy yells, Sean Strickland, tell me what to think. And I remember Chris Curse looks right at me. He's like, "Oh God, no! Like, tell me that we just didn't hear that." Like he's got this, he's like this following now, and this guy goes, "Sean, tell me what to think." And I just remember seeing Chris Curtis's face, and Chris is just like, "Oh God, no! What's going on? We can't have this. We cannot have this. Please." So no, I think the fans just love his realness, man. His fights are exciting. It was the Izzy fight. I think definitely the Izzy fight won a lot of fans over. But his style is very, very different for a lot of people. He's not going to be going in there and knocking dudes' heads off. I mean, he's more of a Diaz style. He's going to pepper you up and then look for the kill shots later on down the line. He's a volume striker. But for me, it's just trying to how do you build off that? How do you show some different attributes so that it's not the judges aren't looking at one scoring criteria, just a good jab and some defense. We have to add some other elements in.
Yeah, I loved your breakdown when you were talking to Ariel about the wrestling exchanges and things you could have done just for different aesthetics in the fight. I thought that was brilliant. It would have made a huge difference in the fight. I'm sure Drickus probably brought that up when you guys were talking as well.
He's so good there. I mean, even Anthony Smith came in and trained with us for like a week. And Anthony's like, bro, this guy is unreal on the ground. He's unreal. He's showing me this little thing and this trick. He's like, I never thought of it this way and blah, 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 blah. Like Anthony left going like, why doesn't this guy use this as much? And I was just like, I just looked and turned my head to the wall and just started going like this on the wall. I go, dude, this is what I deal with.
How is Chris doing right now? He had that crazy battle with Brendan Allen, showed his stuff, tremendous fight, one of the best fights of the year. How's he doing right now?
He's hanging in there, man. Like he didn't have to have a surgery, which I thought was unreal. So they're doing some rehab right now, stem cells or whatever they can do to help the leg. But I got him in the room. Like I've been holding pads for him a little bit, so it's very stationary. We'll just talking some different concepts and, I'm having working a little bit more out of orthodox and sliding over to southpaw, setting the series up a little different. So it's not necessarily like he's moving around great. It's not 100%, but at least he's moving. And, these guys go crazy, Mike, when they're sitting in the house, man. So I'm big on like when Jamahal Hill got hurt, I'm like, hey, come into the gym and help coach or help watch practice or help run things. So at least your mental game is working. And that's what I tell Chris, hey, if you're going to be out for a little while, I need you in the room and helping out. You have great eyes. You have a lot of value to you as a coach and being there. And it's important to be in the room. It'll help you.
Yeah. Jamal went in there and had a tough night against Pereira. And now he's bouncing right back and he's fighting freaking Khalil Rountree at UFC 303. Ooh. What did you think when you found that out?
Yeah, he actually called me, FaceTime me. I was in Chicago for Kai Kamaka, and Jamal FaceTime me. And he's like, well, he had we talked for 45 minutes about a 2-minute fight, about the Alex Pereira fight. But it was good. I think it was therapeutic for him just to talk and break things down and get it off his chest. And then he's like, well, I'm bouncing back quick. I already have the Rountree fight lined up. And I was like, good for you, man. It's going to be a good bounce back. And Rountree's no slouch. He's freaking dangerous as they come. So, you're going to have to take him very seriously, which obviously I know he would. But I'm just glad he got right back in the saddle. Hopefully he's legs back to 100% now and he get right back to work and train.
Yeah, that was obviously the big concern heading into that fight was if the leg was good to go. And then he was throwing kicks and Pereira kicked him and he seemed okay. So
yeah, exactly.
Very interesting matchup. And Khalil finally gets his big name. We'll see how he bounced through. I saw Tommy Aspinall was at XC, man. What was that like? I mean, this guy's trying to fight John Jones. I think that's the fight everybody wants to see. What is it like training with that guy? He's a freak, is he not?
Yeah. So, man, we've had a few conversations back and forth on Instagram, trying to set something up just to get some work in when he's in town. And schedule wise, he's busy, and myself included. So this time it actually worked out. He was here for 2 days, and he's like, bro, I'm not missing a session. Me and you got to get on there and get some work in. So he is as advertised, bro. He's good. His movement, things that I think we all see in the fight, but it's like test driving a Ferrari as a coach. You get to go in there and you get to okay, I'm gonna see what he can do. And I floored this thing right from the start, and I'm like, oh boy, this guy is good, man. He is as advertised. And that was the whole point, man, is get in there, have some fun, and kick some ideologies back and forth and some concepts. Hey, what do you like to do with this and that? Hey, here's some things we like to do here. And he moves like a 45er. I actually brought Kai Kamaka in, one of my better 45ers that understands, our thought process of some of the things in the striking game. And, he was moving around with Kai just as well. So just a class act, great guy, but the skills definitely back it up.
Couple last things right after Sean fights Paulo, Islam's fighting Dustin Poirier, lightweight title. It's a big fight. And I wanted to ask you about this because I know you do breakdowns with other reporters in the game, but this situation is super weird because everything on paper stylistically says that Islam should be as big of a favorite as he is. This just suits him very well. But then you have the vibes. And I kind of felt those vibes when Sean fought Izzy. That time I was like, man, Izzy on paper stylistically matched up really well with Sean, but there's just something in the air that it just feels like Sean's going to go out there and do it. And everything's lining up. All the vibes are with Dustin Poirier right now. Every single one of them. Just, could be his final fight, last shot at a belt. Even the arena is on freaking Lafayette Street in Newark. Literally every single piece of vibe is on his side right now. What do you think of that matchup? And can Dustin do it? And how, as a coach, do you sort of weigh the style and the vibes? And does that factor into anything for you?
Let's circle back on something though, because you made a great point earlier. Here's a guy who comes off of a head kick knockout by Justin Gaethje, right? Wins a fight he wasn't supposed to win, and now he's in a title fight. Right? How fast the page turns in MMA. And now we're talking about him possibly having the opportunity to upset Islam Makhachev. Right? So it's so crazy how fast MMA moves. Here's the thing that intrigues me the most, man, is the southpaw versus southpaw matchup. And I think Poirier does a very, very good job when he fights other southpaws, which is kind of rare because, southpaws tend to have a, better advantage over an orthodox fighter because that's all the, most of the time, percentage-wise, that's the people that they see. But when it's southpaw versus southpaw matchup, I remember breaking down when he fought Conor in Abu Dhabi. I thought the calf kick was going to be a very important part for Poirier, and he did it. He utilized it, because that close stance now, southpaw versus southpaw. I think there's some things that he does that's pretty tricky out of that stance, but he also flows we have a move called the Poirier because of some of the stuff that he does off of his southpaw low kicks into orthodox stances, roll throughs. I think he can find Islam. I think he's got a very good chance to win this fight. I think that the bad taste in his mouth after losing to Khabib, I think this is one of those redemption tours, for him. So never count this man out, man. We saw what he did in his last outing. I think he's got a very good opportunity to win this fight. I think he's very well coached. So, but I mean, Islam is the boogeyman right now. So it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. But I'm with you. I tend to lean towards this being not necessarily an even matchup. But I do like the dog money sometimes on these fights.
Oh man, if Dustin Poirier goes out there and wins the belt, I mean, my head will explode. It'd just be so crazy, like just story wise, him just battling back and knocked out by freaking Justin Gaethje less than a year before, and then he fights for the belt and beats the boogeyman. Like that'd be absolutely nuts, dude.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a testament of these guys that are in the rankings, top 5, top 10. You know, a one loss doesn't necessarily mean you're out of the contention anymore. It's like, man, it's one fight at a time. Go out there and execute and put on a performance, because he's on the heels of being a 3-1 underdog versus Santini, right? I mean, it was a big underdog role. They were setting. I would say they were setting him up, but it was one of those fights where it's like they wanted Santini to win this fight to propel him and use that name in a lot of ways. And Poirier wasn't having it. He went out there and starched this guy, and now he's being rewarded for it. Now he's in a position to go fight for this title, and congratulations and good for him, man. I'm excited for him.
Yeah. What a story it would be. It would just one of the feel-good stories in the sport. Before I let you go, you have a million fighters getting ready to fight. One of which you mentioned the last time we spoke. I said, which fight are you looking forward to seeing what their 2024 is going to look like more than anybody else? You dug a little deep. Cody Stamann was the name that you came up with, and he's getting ready to have his first fight of the year. Talk about Cody. How excited are you to finally see him, and what else can we look forward to from the XC camp?
Man, yeah, he'll be fighting in Louisville. He's just coming off of a bicep tendon injury. He had surgery not so long ago, and man, he's looking amazing. I think just the way that he elevates everybody in the room and how good he is and how good of a teammate he is. But really, it just, man, it's his fight IQ and his situational awareness. You know, I watched him spar yesterday. We put him there with Dan Ige. And Danny Ige is no easy round, right? And he had to figure some things out. And then we put him in against Puni Pagoa. Then it was like another hard Hawaiian guy you had to go with. So I've just been stacking Hawaiians on Hawaiians versus him, and, you know, try to make him navigate through these tough rounds. But, you know, he was our Bubba Jenkins for Kai. You know, he's helped us. I mean, this guy is just, I can't tell you how great of a teammate he is. But it's the skills that when it's his turn and when you see this guy, you know, turn it on and light up the room, he's unreal. I mean, I think he could compete at 45 if he wanted to as well. Just the guys I see him go with on a day-to-day basis, man. He's a talent, and I'm looking forward to seeing him fight on June 8th.
Yeah, I feel like he's always had it. He's been, I don't know, something just hasn't fully clicked there. I mean, he had such a great start to his UFC run, and even some of the outside of maybe the Aljo loss, most of the fights he had have been incredibly competitive against pretty much everybody he's fought. Yeah,
100%, man. And he's just a dog, you know, he's good everywhere. You know, the Merab fight was super close, you know, and he, you know, Merab comes in here and trains all the time, and he's always like, God damn, I don't want to fight this guy again, you know, out of, you know, respectfully, but it was a tough fight, you know. And then today we're in there drilling with Aljo, a guy he competed against, and Aljo's in there helping us out with some drills and some stuff that he sees off a certain series and things like that. So Cody's an open book, man. He's always willing to learn. And I think that's what makes him so damn good.
Dude, all the well, I guess former and past bantamweights are just all running around there right now. Patchy and Aljo and freaking Merab, Stamann, what is that like? Just watching these dudes just get after it like this.
Oh man, you know, it's great because I think for Patchy, it really puts him in a position where he understands where he's at in the pecking order in the bantamweight division across the world, not just in the Bellator or PFL or anything like that, because daily he's got guys like Aljo, he's got Merab, he's got Cody Stamann, you know, and even Manel Kopp, who's a 25er, but you know, Manel's a big 25er. He can fight at 35 if he wanted to. So there's so many good guys in here that you can kind of have that litmus test against. And I'll tell you what, man, Patchy's he's I think he's right up there. I think if you made an argument, he's one or two, and you know, eventually I would love to be able to see him fight for UFC gold.
What I want to see, and I know there's a lot of UFC fans that are going to hate when I say this, what I want is for PFL to call Jose Aldo and pay him $2 million a fight to have him fight Patchy Mix. Because I feel like We're going to have to wait a while for Patchy to come over. I'm not sure what his contract looks like, but I know he just re-signed not that long ago, and Bellator usually doesn't do like short-term deals. Get Jose Aldo in there, and then, on these pay-per-view cards, you do Patchy mix versus Jose Aldo. Like, we're going to get a lot of those answers. If he goes out there and dusts up Jose, I mean, good Lord, it's hard not to say he's the best bantamweight in the world.
100%. And remember, like, Patchy cuts a lot of weight to get to 35. I think there's some 45 opportunities for him as well. If Pico and Pitbull fight, and Pico lost for whatever reason, I think that puts Patchy in a position, because Patchy wouldn't fight Pico. They were old teammates. But I think if Pitbull, were to get past Pico, man, you could put Patchy and Pico or Pitbull together. That's a lot of P's there, man. But you can put those guys together. A lot of PFLs and Picos and Patchys and Pitbulls and everything else. But I mean, dude, the guy's a phenom. Just watching him on Monday's practices and seeing his transitions and seeing the things he's setting up, and then now the striking is really caught up to his ground game, and he's a force to be reckoned with, man. I talked to him today, looked great. I think he leaves on Monday to head out for Paris.
And Tatiana's right there, probably getting ready to fight for the belt. Her and Zhang Wei Li, man, golly.
Oh yeah, dude. Tatiana is scary, man. She's mean as hell. Like, she's so tough. She's mean. Like, she scares the shit out of me in here. She works her ass off. That's going to be a great fight. Hopefully she gets that fight, man. So yeah, she's a stud.
Absolute no brainer. Look, my activity upstairs, you got the brain working. The tank of knowledge is full again, Eric Nicksick. I appreciate you jumping on here and letting me pick your brain and ask you a million questions. You're the man, and all the best to Sean, the team, and everything else you got going on. I know there's 800 fighters getting ready to compete, and I wish you guys all the best.
My brother, are you gonna be out there? Are you gonna be on the East Coast or no?
For Newark?
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll be doing the watch party, so maybe we'll grab a cup of coffee or something before the fights or something.
I'll grab a beer before that fight. Deal with Sean.